At 3:13 a.m., you saw a breath in the morgue. If the protocol says wait, what does your heart say? Is it worth risking your entire career for one life? Stay with us until the end of the story. The answer is heavier and more touching than you think. 3:12 a.m. The clock in the amphitheater is unforgiving. The metal of the drawers shines like ice. The floor smells of disinfectant and silence. Diego Marquez breathes slowly through his nose. He is 28 years old, in his second week alone on the shift. The mask presses against his face. The gloves make a soft, crackling sound as he pulls the sheet up to the woman's chest. The air is so cold that he can see his own breath. He looks at the file, checks the number, checks the time of admission, short notes, hard letters, swallows. The pen hits the metal 1, 2, 3 times. Stops. Steady hands, thinks steady hands. Says it quietly just to hear himself. Brings the light closer. Points to the sternum. The steel of the instruments is perfectly aligned. Asking to begin, the body. Motionless, pale, silent. Diego touches the breastbone with his fingertips, as the protocol dictates a light touch, almost with respect, almost asking permission. The room vibrates with such silence, suddenly a small sound, almost nothing, a short breath like a trapped moan. It's not the air conditioning, it's not the tired mind. It's a breath. The sheet freezes, trembles in a fine line, his head tilts unintentionally, as if his ear knew more than his reason. The light hits her face and makes a pale halo. Then, very slowly, steam comes out of her mouth, a shy little white cloud that dances and disappears. Diego doesn't feel his legs for a second. His heart beats in his neck. He whispers without realizing it, between amazement and fear. It can't be. The phrase breaks in half, scratchy. He blinks hard once, twice. His mind tries to explain. It could be a reflex. It could be a coincidence. It could be the cold air coming in and out of some trick of the body. But his eyes don't lie. There is steam. There is a breath. His skin bristles under his robe. Calm down, he tells himself, as if he could calm his fear. The clock reads 3:13, a minute that feels like an hour. Diego leans his face closer to the mouth without touching it. He listens to the silence. Another smaller breath thunders, as if someone on the other side of the wall were quietly asking for help. The steam appears again, a thread of life lost in the cold room. God escapes him, almost voiceless. He takes half a step back, his waist bumping into the metal cart. The noise echoes, the blow returning to him like a warning. You're awake. You're standing. You're here. His hands tremble a little. He grabs the corner of the table to stop the shaking. The metal burns with cold. Diego looks at the woman's face. Her eyelashes stuck together, blue skin on her nails, a mole near her lip, her dark hair gathered randomly. She doesn't seem to be older than him, so young, so quiet. He feels a weight in his chest, a strangely human warmth in the middle of that frozen room. Talk to me. It comes out unintentionally, softly, almost with shame. If you hear me, breathe. Please. The air doesn't respond immediately. The buzzing of the light grows, as if mocking him. Diego closes his eyes for a second, as if to check he's not dreaming. He opens his eyes. The room is the same. The woman is still there. And for a moment, the world fits into a single detail. The small miracle of a wisp of smoke that insists on rising in the cold. He brings his hand back to her sternum and touches her more firmly but gently, as if asking for forgiveness before making contact. Her skin is still cold, yet there is something moving inside, very slight, like a vibrating thread. Diego bites his lip, feels the metallic taste of the mask. The words come out on their own, almost a secret. No, it can't be. His body wants to run. His head wants to call someone, but his eyes are glued to her mouth, to the almost breath, to the almost life. Everyone turns to that almost. Time enters a tiny needle hole. He feels his own pulse in his fingers, strong, hurried, and in the other body, almost nothing, but it exists. Diego takes a breath, steadies his feet, searching for ground. The silence weighs on his shoulders. He smells the cold of the room, the alcohol, the iron of the instruments. He takes a deep breath, but the air is heavy. The deep circles under his eyes betray him. He hasn't slept well in days. since he started working alone in the amphitheater. Silence has become his enemy. It's as if every noise of metal, every step that echoes in the hallway, reminds him that he is the last one there to touch someone before they are forgotten. On the small table next to him, the styrofoam cup of black coffee is already cold. He picks up the cup, looks at it for a moment, then takes a sip. The taste is bitter, burnt, as if the coffee had been made hours ago. Even so, he drinks it. The bitterness keeps him awake. The bitterness punishes him, and in a way, calms him. He takes his cell phone out of his coat pocket. The screen is cracked in one corner. He unlocks it with his thumb, and the first thing that appears is a list of songs. He chooses one almost without thinking. Sabor a mi, an old bolero, a raspy voice, a soft guitar. The melody fills the room with unhurried space. The sound is so soft that it seems like just a sigh in the air, but it's enough to touch some forgotten corner inside him. "Whenever I ask you," whispers the singer Diego. He closes his eyes for a moment. The music seems to stop time, to take away the fear. He feels his body relax. His hands stop trembling. "A little, my love," murmurs without realizing it, following a line from the song. The cell phone vibrates. It's an old saved voice message that he never deletes, and the cell phone always alerts him. He doesn't press play, but looks at the screen. Just the name of the contact hurts. Camila, hospitalized. He clenches his jaw, takes a deep breath, and brings the cell phone to his chest as if he wants to silence a noisy heart. The memory comes like a flash, a stretcher, a young body, a hand slipping from his, the sound of the monitor going flat, the muffled cry of a mother, and him standing still, not knowing what to do, his hands trembling, his gaze empty, a mistake, an instant, a life. He gets up, pushing the chair back with his knee, and walks across the amphitheater, the sound of his shoes dry on the floor. "It's over," Marquez tells himself in a hoarse voice. It's past, but it never passed. His gaze returns to the woman's body on the table, the same one that a few minutes ago breathed an impossible breath. Diego swallows. His fear returns, but in a different way. Now it has something personal, intimate. He leans on the table, runs both hands over his face, takes a deep breath. His hands still tremble. He looks at them angrily, as if they were guilty. "Please stand up, please stand up." The plea comes out weak, almost like that of a child. His hands won't stop. He looks at his cell phone again. The music continues to play softly, as if the bolero understands everything he feels. The slow rhythm, the soft guitar, the voice full of pain and love at the same time. It's an old song, one of those that seem to pray. Diego leans his shoulder against the cold wall and closes his eyes. The sound envelops him like an embrace he didn't know he needed. For a moment, the amphitheater seems less cold. He takes a deep breath again, and for the first time that morning, the air fills his lungs. Why does that song always do that to him? Why, among so many sounds, is it the bolero that calms his hands, his fear, his past? Perhaps because the bolero says what he cannot say. Perhaps because there, among the dead and the machines, the music is the only sign that there is still a man alive with a beating heart, trying to forgive himself. Diego opens his eyes slowly, his gaze moist but steady. The bitter coffee, the sweet sound, the cruel memory, all together inside him. The trembling continues, but more lightly. And while the bolero plays in the empty amphitheater, he allows himself something strange, to breathe without guilt, just for a moment. Diego takes a deep breath, trying to calm down. The clock reads 3:25. The air feels heavier, as if time has stopped in that room. He looks at the woman. The cold light touches her face and reveals small details he hadn't noticed before. The delicate cut of her eyebrow, the dark hair stuck to her face, the pale skin with a soft tone, almost like a child's. There is something calm there, although there is also fear and mystery. Diego looks at the tag tied to her ankle. The name is written in hurried handwriting, but it is legible. Isabella Beltran, 25 years old. He reads it aloud without realizing it. Isabella Beltran. The sound of the name lingers in the air as if waiting for a response. He repeats it, more softly. Isabella. Something inside him tightens. The name is beautiful, young, alive. and it is strange to say the name of someone who is officially no longer here. Diego turns over the medical chart on the table and reads carefully. Woman, 25 years old, found unconscious on the street with no signs of violence, breathing problems. Death confirmed at 10:47. No family members found. He frowns. No family members. He murmurs the report is from another team. Everything seems to have been done in a hurry, carelessly, as if it were just another body in the line. That bothers him. He takes the chart and reviews it again. There is no address, no contact information, no personal details, nothing. He rests the chart on the table and speaks softly, as if she could hear him. No one came looking for you, Isabella. No one. Silence answers him. Diego takes the sheet and carefully folds it over her chest. There is something in the pocket of her blouse. He hesitates for a second, then reaches in and pulls out a crumpled piece of paper. The paper is damp around the edges, as if someone had squeezed it very hard. He opens it carefully. The letters are shaky, handwritten in blue ink. There is only one sentence. Get a doctor with steady hands. Diego stands still. The buzzing of the light seems louder. He reads it again slowly, as if the words could change their meaning. Find a doctor with steady hands. His fingers grow cold. He looks at his own hands, and they, as if they want to say something, begin to tremble a little. He takes a step back, his heart pounding. It can't be, he murmurs, almost without a voice. The paper slips from his fingers and falls to the floor, sliding until it comes to rest next to the wheel of the stretcher. Diego bends down, picks it up, squeezes it unintentionally, takes a deep breath. Who wrote this to you? Diego whispers, staring at her calm face. How did you know it was me? The silence is so heavy that it seems to have substance. He sits down on the metal stool, the paper still in his hand. He runs his thumb over the words as if he wants to feel what is behind the ink. Trembling hands. The same words he has always wanted to hide. The same weakness that has followed him since that day he has never forgotten. He rests his elbows on his knees, holds his head in both hands, breathes short, irregularly closes his eyes. This is no coincidence, he says quietly to himself. It can't be. He looks at Isabella again. The cold light makes a tear glisten. He didn't even notice it fell. There is something strange, impossible, almost spiritual in that moment, as if that paper were not just a message, but a call. Diego runs the back of his hand over his face, trying to calm down. He puts the paper in his coat pocket as if keeping a secret, then looks back at the medical report. Isabella Beltran, 25 years old, no family, fainted in the street. So little, so empty, as if she had come out of nowhere, and yet he knew exactly who to look for. Diego stands up and looks at her face again, her mouth slightly open, her long eyelashes, the blue tint on her nails. Even though she is still, there is something alive in her, something that seems to say, wait. He places his fingers carefully on the edge of the table. The metal is cold, but he does not remove his hand. Isabella, who sent you here? She asks in a trembling voice. And why me? The bolero continues to play softly in the background, distant. Diego remains silent, letting the sound fill the room. He has no answers, only the cold, the crumpled paper, the name of a stranger, and a strange feeling that squeezes his chest for no reason. The woman's body on the table moves a little, almost imperceptibly, as if a muscle had remembered life for a second. He stands there staring at the body, his heart beating fast, as if he had heard an explosion. His hands tremble. He approaches slowly, afraid of imagining things. It can't be, he whispers with a trembling voice. He puts 2 fingers on her neck, searching for a pulse. Nothing but her chest. Her chest moves, a short, sharp, but real movement, the sound of air entering softly. God, I know his tone is one of shock, of not being able to believe it. She's breathing. Diego runs to the door and opens it forcefully. Rosa, Rosa, come quickly. His voice sounds loud in the empty corridors. A few seconds later, a woman in a lab coat rushes in. Rosa Jimenez, autopsy technician for over 20 years. Gray hair, serious face, tired but always attentive gaze. What's happening? Rosa asks as she puts on her gloves. Diego points to the table, unable to hide his fear. Breathe, he says. Look, the girl is breathing. Rosa approaches slowly, observes, waits. The whole room seems to hold its breath, and then a faint sound is heard, a sigh coming from Isabella's mouth. a small puff of steam in the cold air. Rosa opens her eyes in surprise. Holy Mother of God. Diego rushes over, grabs the stethoscope, puts it on her chest with his ear pressed against the metal part. There's a sound, he says, almost without a voice. I don't know if it's her heart, but there's a sound. Rosa takes a step back, trying to understand the impossible. Diego, be careful. It could be a reflex or gas from the body, she says, but her voice is also trembling. Wait. Before she finishes, the door to the morgue bursts open. The noise is loud and serious. Dr. Alvarez, the shift supervisor, appears in the doorway, tall and firm, with the hard gaze of those doctors who accept neither mistakes nor emotions. What's going on? Here? She asks coldly, looking at the scene. Diego tries to speak but can't. His breathing mixes with the loud beating of his heart. Doctor, he swallows. The patient. I think she's alive. Alvarez steps forward, looks at Isabella's body, then at the saw that is still on the table. Alive, she repeats mockingly. Marquez, do you have any idea what you're saying? Rosa steps in. I saw it too, doctor. Her chest moved. Alvarez sighs, annoyed. Enough. Let's not start with fantasies. She approaches the body. There are no vital signs, but just then a soft sound comes from Isabella's mouth. A small moan, so faint it sounds like a whisper. The three of them stand still. Alvarez frowns. It can't be, he murmurs. Diego moves closer. She's alive. I know it. And he looks her straight in the eyes. We need help now, doctor. The tense chief crosses her arms. Listen to me carefully, Marquez. If you touch that body without permission, you're finished. Understand? Finished. Rosa looks at him worriedly. Diego, think carefully. But he can't think. He can only hear that faint human sound begging not to be forgotten. Isabella's voice as if asking for help without words. I can't let her die, he says, and the words cut through the air. Alvarez looks at him seriously for a second, then hands him a pad of papers. If you're going to do it, sign here. Sign without changing the tone, and you take responsibility. Everything will be your fault. Time is running out. Diego feels the weight of the decision in his hands. He looks at the sheet, then at the woman on the table. He feels his heart beating so hard that it seems as if the sound is coming from outside. Rosa approaches and whispers, Diego, think about your career. He shakes his head slowly, his eyes filled with tears. I'd rather lose my career than lose another life. He grabs the pen. The tip touches the paper. His hands shake so much that the signature comes out crooked, but it comes out. He signs. Alvarez looks at him for a moment with a mixture of anger and respect, then turns and leaves without saying another word. Rosa remains still and silent. Diego grips the pen tightly, takes a deep breath, and whispers to himself, Tremble. Tremble all you want. But today, they are going to save someone. He takes off his gown, rolls up his sleeves, and approaches Isabella. The lights flicker. The air feels heavy. The world seems to stand still in there, and for the first time that early morning, Diego is not afraid. He has faith. Faith that even in the midst of the impossible, there are still seconds that change everything. Isabella is there, between nothingness and almost life. Rosa grips the ambu bag with both hands, her hard fingers squeezing the valve to the rhythm of the count. 1, 2, 3. The sound of air entering is the only living noise in the room. Diego watches intently, his forehead sweaty, his eyes on her mouth. He feels his body tremble between fear and hope. Keep going, Rosa, he says softly. Don't stop. Rosa obeys. The sound repeats with rhythm. 4, 5, 6. The air enters, exits, enters again, and for a moment nothing happens. The monitor doesn't react. The silence seems to mock them. Diego moves closer, placing his hand on Isabella's frozen shoulder. His fingers touch her cold skin, almost like glass. Come on, Isabella, he whispers. Breathe with me, please. She feels like crying, but holds back. Her throat closes for a second. Then a soft sound breaks the silence. A short, hoarse moan, almost like a whimper. Rosa opens her eyes wide. Did you hear that? She says breathlessly. Diego leans closer. The sound is heard again, a little clearer, raspy. But there are words there, a very soft voice. Mama. He stands still. The word echoes inside him like a bolt of lightning. Mom. That fragile sound coming from the depths of a body that no one believed was still there. My God, she murmurs, covering her mouth with her glove. Diego swallows his tears and looks at her hands, her blue, almost purple nails. But something strange is happening. The tips are trembling, a slight movement as if trying to grab the air. Rosa looks at her nails and observes them in surprise. They are trembling. Diego brings his face closer to the light. The blue of her nails shines as if hiding a secret. "Why are they blue?" he says, almost without realizing it. "Is it because of the cold? Or something else?" Rosa doesn't answer. She just keeps pressing the ambu bag. 1, 2, 3. The sound of artificial breathing mixes with Diego's rapid heartbeat. He feels his whole body vibrate. Isabella lets out another sound, this time longer. It's not a word, it's a breath, but there's rhythm, there's effort. Diego closes his eyes. His heart beats strongly, and then, without thinking, without planning, he does something he has never done before. He begins to sing slowly, fearfully, but he sings. "With you, I learned that there are new and better emotions." The bolero comes out shaky, hoarse, shy, but the sound is warm, human. The melody mixes with the hum of the air and Rosa's forced breathing. She looks at him in surprise. "Diego, what are you doing?" she asks as she squeezes the ambu bag. He doesn't answer. He keeps singing, his eyes filled with tears, his voice broken. "I learned that the week has more than 7 days." Isabella, still with her face turned to the side, moves her lips. It is a small but clear gesture. Her mouth moves with the music, following a lost syllable, a soft sound. Diego stops singing for a second, frightened. He looks at her. "Did you hear her?" She followed the song. Rosa shakes her head in disbelief. "Since when do you sing in the morgue?" Marquez says with a nervous laugh. He looks down sadly. "I don't know," he replies, almost in a whisper. "I think it just came out." The sound of air entering her lungs mixes with the music. A small miracle begins to happen there, amid the cold, fear, and loneliness. Time seems to stand still. There are only 3 living things in that room. Diego's voice, the air entering and leaving the ambu bag, and Isabella's fragile breath as she returns slowly, step by step, from the edge of nothingness. Rosa watches in silence. A tear escapes from under her mask. Diego continues, now more softly, almost in a whisper. "With you, I learned to see the light on the other side of the moon." And as he sings, her body responds. A finger moves. Her chest rises a little more. A new sigh is born. The clock reads 4:15 in the morning. The room is filled with a cold light that seems to never end. The sound of the ambu bag remains steady in Rosa's hand, who carefully changes the rhythm. Diego, sweaty and tired, does not take his eyes off Isabella. Her chest rises and falls irregularly but alive. The door to the morgue opens with a bang. Dr. Alvarez enters hurriedly, her cell phone pressed to her ear, her face tense, her heels echoing loudly, breaking the fragile silence that remained there. "Yes, sir, I understand," she says in a controlled voice. "But we can't confirm anything until we review the entire protocol." "Yes, doctor, I know. She hangs up and runs her hand over her forehead. She has the face of someone who carries the entire hospital on her back. Alvarez begins, without shouting, but firmly. "I just spoke with management. If this goes wrong, if this woman dies in your hands, your career ends tonight. They said you should have taken her to the emergency room immediately and not tried anything here." The phrase hangs in the air, cutting. Diego doesn't respond. He continues to look at Isabella. Her face looks calmer now. The air enters with difficulty, but it enters. There is life. There is a chance. Rosa tries to say something, her voice trembling. "Doctor, the girl is really breathing. Look closely." Alvarez leans in a little and looks at Isabella's chest. The soft sound of breathing can be heard on the walls. She moves her head. Restrained, "I don't deny what I see, Rosa. But if this gets out, if anyone finds out that you started resuscitation without permission," she looks at Diego. "No one will protect you, Diego. No one." Diego hears everything, but doesn't stop looking at Isabella. There's something about her, something that stops him, that makes him forget himself. He feels his heart beating fast, not with fear, but with urgency. He speaks slowly, as if talking to himself, not to the others. No one dies alone. Here, silence fills the room. Rosa looks at him. Not knowing what to say, Alvarez sighs. The hard look breaks for a moment. Marquez's voice now sounds softer. You're playing with fire. He runs his hand over his face, covered in tears and sweat. Then I'll burn, he replies firmly, almost in a whisper. But I won't leave her alone. Alvarez looks at him for a second, but there's something different in his eyes now, a mixture of anger and respect. He exhales, looks at Rosa, and says, if you're going to do it right. Don't let anyone find out. And he closes the door behind him. The sound of the door echoes in Diego's chest. He feels the weight of his decision fall heavily on him. His hand is still trembling. His hand is still shaking. But with that same hand, he takes Isabella's. We're with you, he says softly. Don't go. Rosa looks at him, moved. The air smells of alcohol and hope. Diego says, almost in a whisper, you should get some rest. He shakes his head. No, he says firmly. I'm staying. She understands. The clock ticks away, minute by minute. The night outside seems endless. The lights flicker softly. The sound of the ambu bag, Isabella's breathing, Diego's tired whisper. Everything becomes a one song. He sits in the chair next to the table, his gaze fixed on her. The white light reflects on his face, revealing soft features and an almost impossible calm. Diego adjusts the sheets over her body, as if he were covering someone asleep, not a patient, between life and nothingness. Dawn is coming soon, he says so softly that it is barely audible. Hold on a little longer. Yes, the early morning progresses slowly. The clock reads almost 5 a.m. Outside there is still no sign of the sun. The amphitheater is silent. Only the sound of oxygen and the slight hum of improvised machines can be heard. Diego remains seated next to Isabella, his gaze tired but steady. Rosa leans on the table, sighs, and runs her hand over her face. I need a coffee, she murmurs, opening the bag she had left in the corner. I don't know if I'm awake or dreaming anymore. She comes closer, fixes her hair, and looks at the table. Isabella's body now seems calmer, her chest rising and falling slowly, her face looking peaceful, color returning to her lips. Rosa watches, moved. It's a miracle, she says in a low voice. Diego doesn't answer. He just watches, with a face somewhere between faith and surprise. Rosa checks her things and says, trying to keep her voice steady, maybe we'll find out who this young woman is. Rosa nods and goes to the metal cabinet where they left the bag that came with the body. It's a simple bag made of light-colored fabric, dirty with dust and with a half-broken zipper. She puts it on the table and begins to check it carefully. Let's see, she says, as she slowly takes out the contents. A handkerchief, a lipstick, a subway ticket. She pauses and picks up a small old iron key tied to a faded blue ribbon. Engraved on the body of the key is the number 13. Rosa frowns. 13, she repeats. What could this be? Diego approaches and takes the key between his fingers. The metal is cold. The blue ribbon moves slightly in the air from the fan. It looks like a locker key or a key to some storage room, she says quietly, observing the details. But why keep it so carefully, Rosa? She turns it from side to side and notices that the ribbon is tied with a double knot, as if someone wanted to make sure it would never come loose. This ribbon, she comments with a sad smile. It's a girl's. My daughter used to use them in her notebooks. She sighs, leaves the key on the table and goes back to the bag. Inside an inner pocket, she finds a folded piece of paper. It's a yellowed receipt, almost torn at the edges. She unfolds it carefully and the name printed at the top catches her attention. Tlalpan General Hospital. Below that, the name Elena Beltran. Rosa stands still. Diego hands her the paper and says, Look. He takes it and reads slowly, line by line. The date, 3 weeks ago. The amount, imaging study. In the comments section, something scribbled, almost illegible. The patient presented complications. He reads aloud. Follow-up recommended. He frowns. Beltran, the same last name. Rosa adds, It must be her mother. Silence returns. A heavy silence. Diego looks at the paper for a few seconds. The name Elena Beltran weighs on his mind. Then he says slowly, Her mother was admitted here in this hospital. Rosa nods. 3 weeks ago, and the daughter looks at the table. She was found unconscious on the street, alone. The sound of oxygen fills the space again. Diego runs his hand over his forehead thoughtfully. The blue key on the table reflects the white light, giving off a small glint on the metal. 13, he murmurs. What does that have to do with the hospital? Rosa crosses her arms, observing the object. It could be anything. A locker, a suitcase. But what a coincidence. He picks up the receipt. The mother in the hospital, the number 13 on the key, and both with the same last name. Diego remains silent. He takes the key again and runs his thumb over the engraved number. He feels a chill. Maybe this key is the answer, he says almost in a whisper. Or maybe another question. Rosa gives him a tired smile and still thinks it's a coincidence. He doesn't answer, just puts the key in his pocket next to the crumpled piece of paper he found earlier. The blue ribbon remains outside, moving slightly as if it were alive. A tired smile, and you still think it's a coincidence he doesn't answer. He just puts the key in the pocket of his robe next to the crumpled paper he found earlier. The blue ribbon remains outside, moving slightly, as if it had a life of its own. For a moment, Diego looks at Isabella. She sleeps with a peaceful face and soft breathing. Who are you, Isabella Beltran? He murmurs in a low voice without expecting an answer. Rosa watches him and sighs. This story still has a lot, too. Diego looks away toward the small window where a little light is beginning to enter. Dawn is slowly breaking. The longest night of his life is ending, but something tells him that the real mystery is just beginning. The blue ribbon moves in his pocket. The yellowed receipt is still open on the table, and the number 13 remains there in silence, like a question that still has no answer. The morning dawns colorless. The sky over the city of Los Angeles is covered by a heavy gray fog that seems reluctant to lift. The streets are still damp from the early morning drizzle. The air smells of diesel and freshly baked bread from the bakeries that are already opening. Diego walks with his hands in the pockets of his robe, his tired eyes trying to understand what brought him there. At his side, Rosa carries a folder with some papers and a printed photo of Isabella. The young woman's face is still pale in the image and seems to be looking at them. Here it is, says Rosa, pointing to a corner of República de Cuba Street in downtown. The report says they found her lying right here, near the kiosk. Diego looks at the place. It is a simple plaza with worn benches and a crooked tree in the center. The ground still has marks of wet earth and leaves. He crouches down and touches the ground as if he expects to feel something. Strange to think she fell here, Rosa murmurs to herself. She sighs. The city swallows people like this every day, Diego. No one sees an old man approaching, pushing a cart with musical instruments. He wears an old hat and has a gray mustache that covers half his face. The metallic sound of a guitar moving in the cart catches their attention. Don Tonio, says Rosa with a smiles. The lady at the snack bar said he was playing here the night of the accident. Diego stands up. Let's go talk to him. The old man stops the cart and takes off his hat in greeting. Good morning, doctor, he says kindly. We meet again, eh? Rosa smiles. Good morning. Don Tonio, we're looking for information about a girl. He shows him the photo of Isabella. The man frowns. He approaches, takes the paper carefully as if he were afraid of tearing it. The silence lasts a few seconds. Then he slowly says, Yes, I remember her. His voice is hoarse but confident. She sang here with her mother. They were always together, you know. She had a beautiful voice. Diego and Rosa look at each other. With her mother, Diego repeats. What was her name? The old man thinks for a moment, looking at the ground. Elena. Yes, Elena Beltran. They always came to sing on Sundays. She played the guitar, and the girl sang backup. People would stand and listen to them. He smiles, his eyes full of memories. Even the police officers stood still. Look. Rosa takes a step forward, excited. Don Tonio. What happened to them? The man lets out a long sigh. Mrs. Elena suddenly fell ill and stopped coming. The girl pauses and looks at the photo again. I saw her alone a few weeks ago. She was singing softly, as if she didn't want anyone to hear her. She seemed lost. Diego feels a lump in his throat. How long ago did Mrs. Elena die? Don Tonio looks down. 3 weeks. The answer comes out slowly. heavily. They buried her in San Lorenzo. The sound of traffic fills the silence again. Diego lowers his head, and Rosa clutches the paper tightly. 3 weeks, Diego repeats, almost to himself. Don Tonio continues. The last time I saw the girl, she was here, right where you are. She was standing, looking at the sky. I approached her and asked her if she was okay. She just said, "He's waiting for me." Diego feels a chill down his spine. She asks in a whisper, "Oh God, your mom." The old man adjusts his hat. His voice breaks as he says that his mom talks to him in his dreams, that they'll be together again soon. The silence grows heavier. The sound of horns in the distance seems very far away. Rosa swallows. She must have been desperate. Don Tonio, slowly. The death of a mother is not something you get over, doctor. She looks at Diego, but that girl had a sadness that was not just sadness. It was as if her soul weighed heavily on her. Diego takes a deep breath, not knowing what to say. He looks again at the ground, at the same spot where she fainted. That piece of sidewalk now seems sacred to him. "Thank you, Don Tonio," Rosa says quietly. "Thank you for telling us." The old man smiles sadly, picks up his guitar, and pushes the cart again, then slowly walks away, disappearing into the fog. Diego stands still, staring into nothingness. His mother died 3 weeks ago, he repeats thoughtfully. Rosa watches him seriously. The cold wind blows, moving the paper with Isabella's photo. Rosa grabs it before it flies away. The fog begins to disappear little by little, revealing a pale, timid sun trying to overcome the gray of the morning. They stand there for a few seconds without saying anything. The distant sound of a guitar can be heard in the street, perhaps Don Tonio playing again. Diego, staring at the ground, feels something growing inside him, a mixture of guilt, curiosity, and a strange sense of destiny. He squeezes the pocket of his robe where the small key with the blue ribbon rests. The ribbon moves with the wind, and for a moment he is sure that there is something connecting all of that, but he doesn't yet know what exactly. The day begins in earnest, but in the hospital the air feels heavy and dense, as if every hallway holds a secret. Diego enters through the side door of the morgue, his gown wrinkled and his eyes sunken. Rosa follows right behind him with the folder of records. They walk in silence until the sound of a phone breaks the calm. "They won't stop calling," says Rosa nervously, arranging the papers in her hands. Someone leaked the story before it was finished. The door opens forcefully. Dr. Alvarez is there with a serious face, cell phone in hand, and a stack of reports under her arm. "Marquez, to my office now," she says coldly, leaving no room for discussion. Diego takes a deep breath, looks at Rosa, and follows her without saying a word. The hallway feels longer than usual. The sound of their footsteps echoes as they reach the director's office. There are 2 other doctors outside, whispering. One of them is holding a local newspaper with the headline in large letters, "Autopsy on a Living Woman Scandal at Los Angeles City Hospital." Diego feels his stomach churn. Inside the office, the atmosphere is tense. Alvarez closes the door with a loud click and throws her cell phone on the table. "You know what you did," she says in a restrained voice. "It's already all over the media. They're calling me from the ministry. They're asking if we're crazy." Diego tries to answer, but she raises her hand. "Don't say anything. Take a deep breath. If the girl dies, not only will you lose your career, but this hospital will be marked forever." Rosa, who is standing near the door, tries to speak. "Doctor, the girl is now breathing on her own." Diego didn't make anything up. Alvarez stares at them. "Do you have any evidence? A medical report? A witness? Anything that will save us from scandal?" Silence falls like a stone. Diego runs his hand through his hair in desperation. There's still no report. He tries to stay calm, but it wasn't a mistake, I know. Alvarez approaches him with a steady gaze. "Then you'll have to prove it." He takes a folder from the table and pushes it toward him. "You have 24 hours, Marquez. If you don't bring me clear evidence, I'll suspend you." He stands still, staring at the folder, feeling time slipping through his fingers. 24 hours, he repeats in a low voice, and not a minute more. She returns to her chair. "Now go, Rosa." She grabs his arm and pulls him out into the hallway. The noise of journalists and nurses is almost unbearable. Cameras, flashes, microphones. A voice shouts, Dr. Marquez, is it true that you almost performed an autopsy on a living woman? Diego lowers his head and tries to pass, but another reporter stands in front of him. How does it feel to be called the doctor of the dead who breathe? Rosa pushes the man with her shoulder. Let him work. They cross the crowd to the elevator. The doors close and silence returns. Diego leans against the wall, exhausted. Rosa, this is going to destroy me. She looks at him calmly, and her voice is soft, almost like a mother's. No, Diego, you did the right thing. Now we just have to prove it. The elevator stops. They return to the morgue. The usual cold light, the smell of alcohol, the distant sound of the hospital. Isabella is still on the stretcher, surrounded by the equipment they brought quickly, now covered with a clean sheet. Her breathing is soft, almost imperceptible, but it's there. They decided not to move her for fear that her body would suffer a shock. Rosa adjusts the sheet and looks at the girl's feet. How strange, she says, frowning. One of the sneakers is loose. She approaches, touches the insole, and feels something hard under the fabric. Wait, there's something in here. Diego leans over. What, Rosa? She carefully removes the sneaker, turns it over, and sees an envelope stuck inside the insole, held in place with tape. It is wrinkled, dirty, but intact. My God, she says softly. Who would hide a letter inside a shoe? She delicately breaks the tape, opens the envelope, and inside is a sheet of paper folded many times. The handwriting is simple, firm, feminine. Rosa begins to read aloud, her voice trembling. If you are reading this, it's because I failed. Take care of my Isabella. Elena stops and looks at Diego. He feels a chill run up his spine. Elena murmurs the same name as on the receipt. Rosa continues with an even more trembling voice. And look for locker 13. Silence. Diego takes the paper and reads it for himself. The words tremble in his hands. Locker 13, he repeats with a lost look. He shakes his head, confused and moved. Confused and moved. His mother knew. She knew something was going to happen. Diego folds the paper carefully and puts it in his pocket along with the blue ribbon key. His gaze goes to Isabella, who remains motionless. She asked them to take care of her daughter, he says quietly. So that's what I'm going to do. Rosa looks at him without saying anything. Tears fall down her cheeks. The cold light of the mortuary reflects off the torn envelope in the firm handwriting of a mother who saw her end coming. For a moment, the silence inside is different. It is no longer the silence of death, but the silence of a promise that has just been born. The day drags on again. The cold light of the mortuary is still on, but now the silence is different. Rosa is sitting on a bench with her eyes downcast, holding Elena's letter in her hands. Diego paces back and forth restlessly, his shoulders slumped and his hands hidden in his pockets. The distant sound of footsteps in the hallway can be heard far away, as if the world had stopped inside. He passes by the table where Isabella lies, connected to emergency equipment. Her face looks peaceful, her chest rising and falling at a slow pace. It was almost invisible. Diego stops and watches her for a few seconds. He takes a deep breath. You know, Rosa, he begins in a low voice. It's been a long time since I've told anyone this. She looks up. What? He hesitates, runs his hand over his face as if still struggling with something inside, then leans against the cold wall, looks at the ceiling, and speaks slowly, trying not to cry. It was during my residency. He pauses. I was still a resident, you know. There was a patient, a 15-year-old girl. I still remember her name, Camila. Rosa listens in silence, feeling the weight of his words. She had a heart problem, he continues. Nothing that couldn't be fixed. It was a simple surgery. At least that's what they said. I was following the case, assisting the surgeon. It was my first time in a major operation. I was shaking, but I thought it was normal. He lets out a weak, soundless laugh that quickly fades away. During the surgery, the machine started beeping. She went into cardiac arrest and everyone started running and shouting orders. I stood still. Rosa. Still. My hands wouldn't move. I looked at her chest and I couldn't do anything. His voice breaks. He remained silent for a moment, looking at the floor with his fists clenched. The surgeon yelled at me, "Squeeze, Marquez! Squeeze!" But I couldn't. He swallows. She died there, and I just dropped the instrument when the monitor beeped. Rosa gets up slowly and walks toward him. Her gaze is firm, but full of compassion. Diego continues talking as if he needs to get it all out. After that, no one had to say anything to me. I punished myself. His voice sounds rough. I started avoiding patients, any emergency. I always looked for an excuse not to be alone. I only wanted to deal with those who... He looks at Isabella. Those who were no longer breathing. The silence returns. Rosa stands in front of him, with the letter in her hands. "So that's why," she says softly. "That's why your hands are shaking." Diego nods without looking at her. From that day on, Rosa, from that day on, they never stopped shaking. She takes a step forward, puts the letter on the table, and touches his arm. "But today," she says firmly, "today you didn't freeze." He lifts his face, his eyes full of tears. "How did you hear me?" Speak slowly, with a steady gaze. "I'm at that table. You saw someone dying again, but this time you didn't stop." He tries to smile, but his face breaks. "I couldn't let it happen again." Rosa looks at him for a few seconds in silence. "Sometimes God puts the same pain in front of us," she says with a trembling voice. "Not to punish us, but to heal us." Diego closes his eyes and a tear falls. "Heal," he repeats in a whisper. "I don't know if I can still do it." Rosa smiles a little. "Of course you can, because today your hands trembled, Diego. But even though they trembled, they saved a life." The air feels thick. He looks at his own hands, now still and firm, resting on the table. Isabella's breathing in the background sets the rhythm of the silence, like a reminder that this time he didn't fail. "No." Rosa picks up the letter, folds it carefully, and places it on the table next to the key with the blue ribbon. "Maybe these two," she says, looking at the letter and the girl, "came here to remind you." Diego says nothing, just takes a deep breath, dries his eyes, and looks at Isabella again. Her face looks calm, almost as if she were smiling, and for a moment, he feels that the old guilt he had carried for so long is finally beginning to let go. Rosa walks away silently, leaving him there alone with the soft sound of her breathing and the peace of someone who, although trembling, has finally found the courage not to freeze. The hallway of the Tlalpan General Hospital smells of disinfectant and stale coffee. The white light is uncomfortable on the eyes. Diego walks silently with the blue ribbon key hidden in his closed fist. Rosa walks beside him, hugging the folder to her chest as if she were carrying something fragile. "It's this way. If her mother was here, it could be a key to the hospital lockers," she says, pointing to the metal lockers in the old dressing room. The lockers are at the back. The doors creak. It is a simple place with peeling walls. The rows of iron are numbered with worn paint. The numbers are still in order, some crooked, others scratched out. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, whispers Diego, stopping in front of it. 13 is half erased, but you can still see rust marks on the lock. Diego runs his finger over the number, feeling the cold metal on his skin. Rosa holds her breath as if opening that locker were like opening a chest. "Ready?" she asks, almost without a voice. "I don't know," he replies with a tired smile. "But let's go." The key turns with a sharp click. The lock opens. Diego pulls the door open slowly. The smell that comes out is of stored paper and fine dust. At the back, there is a small shoebox, a folded rag, and on top of the rag, an old cell phone with a broken case and a pair of headphones carefully rolled up and tied with a simple knot. On top of everything, there is a pink note. She picks up the paper first. The handwriting is firm, slanted, feminine. She reads and her voice breaks at first. "For Isabella and the young doctor who sings boleros." The note trembles in her hands. Diego stands still, his eyes fixed on the words, his throat dry. The young doctor who sings boleros repeats softly, without understanding how he knew. The silence in the dressing room feels heavier. Rosa looks at him, surprised and moved. "Diego, who else knows that you sing?" she asks sweetly. No one answers. He, without taking his eyes from the note, "I never said it here." He runs his thumb over the phrase as if he could feel the voice of the person who wrote it. His chest hurts. The image returns. The cold room. Isabella between life and nothingness. And him singing. He swallows. He opens his cell phone. "Rosa," he says, returning the paper. "There must be something for her." Diego grabs the heavy old device. He squeezes it like someone grabbing someone's hand. He presses the button. The screen lights up slowly with a dim light. No password, just a simple background, and a photo of two women hugging and smiling, one older with her hair tied back, the other young with the same mouth as Isabella, the same sweet gaze, mother and daughter. Elena and Isabella, says Rosa carefully. An icon flashes on the screen, voice messages. Diego touches it, and a list of short audio files with dates appears. His fingers tremble. He chooses the first one. The voice that comes out is soft, tired, but very affectionate. My dear daughter, if you're listening to me, don't be scared. I'm in the hospital. I feel a little tired, but I'm here. Diego closes his eyes. It's a voice that embraces Rosa. She puts on a headset but quickly takes it off, as if she wants to listen with her whole body. He puts the phone on speaker so that the sound fills the dressing room. Next audio. I went to the Pershing Square Brigade today. They played music in the line. I saw a young doctor singing a bolero while treating a man. He sang softly, as if he were afraid. But his hands, though they trembled, were tender. Diego holds his breath. His gaze is lost. Rosa looks at him slowly. Pershing Square? She says, surprised. You were there? He nods, remembering the voice, barely a sigh, a voluntary action, a weekend weeks ago. I sang to calm an old man who was crying. I didn't even think about it. I just sang. Rosa smiles, her eyes filled with tears. Then she saw you. Diego plays another audio clip. The same voice, weaker, but firm. My dear daughter, if I leave before then, listen carefully. Look for the doctor who sings. I saw him with my own eyes. He is afraid, but he is good. I felt it. Diego will take care of you. Rosa covers her mouth with her hand. Diego bows his head, holding back tears. The room grows smaller. The blue ribbon on the key brushes her wrist like a reminder. Another audio clip. If I don't make it in time, leave this in locker 13. Your things will be there, and if fate is kind, the young doctor will find it. Trust me, trust me. It falls to the floor like a tear. Diego runs his hand over his face. There's no way to hide Elena's voice. It breaks down any defense. One more, Rosa asks quietly. Diego plays it. The sound comes out quieter, as if she recorded it lying down at night. Isabella, my girl, if you're alone, sing quietly. Sing the one you like. I learned it with you. And if you hear someone singing it softly without meaning to, that's him. Diego closes his hand over the cell phone. The bolero, the same song he sang, thinking, the same piece. His skin bristles. The question returns. Big, simple. Impossible. How did he know? No one answers. Only the still air, the faint sound of the hallway, and the presence of that mother in her recorded voice as if she were there with them. Rosa leans on the locker next to her, seeking strength. She planned everything, she says with a sad smile. She left the path, the key, the number, the messages, and you, Diego. He can't speak. He skips to the last audio on the list. Elena's voice is now almost a whisper, but still sweet. If the young doctor hears this, thank you. I don't know you, but I saw you when you were singing. Your hand stopped shaking. Don't forget. You're afraid, but you're good. Take care of my daughter as if she were your own. And you, my little girl, take care of him too. The audio ends in a soft silence that hurts and calms at the same time. Diego rests his forehead on the door of locker 13, takes a deep breath, and lets the tears fall without shame. Elena whispers with gratitude and guilt, I heard you, Rosa. She approaches and puts her hand firmly on his shoulder. She trusted you before you trusted yourself. Diego slowly opens his eyes, puts the cell phone carefully, rolls up the headphones, folds the note, and the blue ribbon from the key remains between his fingers, now warm. Let's take it, she says in a hoarse voice. It's all hers, and it's all we have. They close the locker door without locking it. The number 13 remains there, staring back at them like an eye that already knows the story. As they leave, the noise of the hospital returns. Stretchers, footsteps, voices, but inside them, only one thing continues to beat. The certainty of that simple voice that crossed walls, corridors, and fear. He looks for the doctor who sings. He is afraid, but he is good. Diego walks silently beside Rosa. He carries his cell phone on his chest as if carrying a borrowed heart. The evening light enters through the narrow window of the room and spreads across the floor, mixing shadow and calm. The sound of the machines is constant, a soft rhythm almost like a heartbeat. Diego is sitting next to the bed, his gaze fixed on Isabella, who is still asleep. Her face now has color. Her chest rises and falls more strongly. He takes a deep breath, tired, but at peace. Rosa appears at the door with a cup of coffee in her hand. "Here you go, doctor." On Isabella, who is still asleep, her face now has color. Her chest rises and falls more strongly. She breathes deeply, tired, but at peace. Rosa appears at the door with a cup of coffee in her hand. "Here, doctor. You haven't slept in 2 days," she says in a tone that is both tender and scolding. He takes the cup, takes a sip, and grimaces. "It's cold, and I'm too old to heat up coffee for a stubborn man," she replies with a sideways smile. They both laugh softly for a brief moment, until a moan breaks the air. Isabella moves, a small movement, but full of life. Her eyelids tremble. Her body tries to remember its weight. Diego jumps up, his heart beating fast. "Rosa, look at this," she says, approaching attentively. Isabella takes a deep breath, turns her face, and slowly opens her eyes. Her long eyelashes blink, trying to understand where she is. Calm down, Diego says quietly, leaning over her. "Everything is fine. You're safe. You're in the hospital." Her eyes, still confused, move quickly. "Where am I?" Her voice is weak and raspy. "In the Tlalpan hospital," he replies in calm Spanish. "I'm Dr. Marquez. You had an accident, yes, but you're fine now." She frowns. Her breathing quickens. My mom asks in a low voice. Diego hesitates for a second and looks at Rosa, who looks down, sadly. He doesn't answer. The pain in Isabella's eyes is like a blow. She tries to sit up, but her body doesn't respond. Hey, slow down," he says, supporting her shoulder. "Don't strain yourself. It's still too soon." She breathes with difficulty. Her gaze, previously lost, now changes. She becomes tense with fear. "Where's Vargas?" she asks suddenly. The tone of fear cuts through the air. Diego moves away, a little confused. "Vargas? Who's Vargas?" Isabella clutches the sheets with her hands, her eyes filled with tears. He was following us. My mom owed money for some studies. He said that if we didn't pay, he was going to—" Her voice breaks. "He was going to hurt us." Rosa puts her hand on her arm. "Calm down, my girl. No one is going to touch you here." But Isabella shakes her head desperately. No, she doesn't understand. He knows everything. He knows where we lived. He knows my name. She looks around as if she expects to see him come out from some corner. "I don't want him to come here." Diego approaches and takes her hand. "Listen," Isabella says firmly. "No one comes in here without my permission. Understand? You're safe." She looks at him, her eyes full of tears, as if she wants to believe him but is still afraid. And if he does come, Diego squeezes her hand tighter. "Then he'll have to get past me." The words come out simple, but true. Rosa watches in silence with a mixture of pride and concern. Isabella cries softly with relief and fear at the same time. "My mom just wanted me to get better," she says between sobs. "We did everything we could to pay for those studies, but he has no heart." Diego feels a lump in his throat. His face is covered in tears, his voice broken. He wipes her face with a handkerchief, as carefully as if he were touching glass. "It's over now," he says softly. "No one is going to hurt you now. I promise." She closes her eyes, takes a deep breath, and for the first time, relaxes. Rosa approaches, adjusts the sheet, and sighs. She is truly afraid, Diego. Afraid of the living, not of death. He looks at the floor for a moment, thoughtful, then looks at her again. "So that fear is what we're going to have to face." Rosa nods. Silence returns to the room. The evening light enters through the cracks in the window and forms streaks of light on the sheet. Isabella sleeps again, exhausted, but calmer. Diego stays there, sitting and watching. He feels the weight of everything, of the story, of the coincidences, of the promise he made without realizing it. And looking at her, He says in a low voice, as if talking to himself, "You're safe here, I swear." His voice trembles a little, but it is firm, and in that simple promise spoken in the midst of silence, there is something that changes the air, as if the previously cold room were breathing with them. Night falls heavily over the city of Los Angeles. The sky is cloudy, the wind blows strongly through the corridors, and the whole hospital seems to shake with each clap of thunder outside. The storm sends out flashes of lightning that make the windows rattle. Inside, the generator makes a strange, low hum, as if it too were afraid. Diego is sitting next to Isabella's bed. The sound of the machines is the only sign that everything is still under control. Rosa reads some notes in a corner, trying to hide her fatigue, but her eyes are already half closed. The clock reads almost 2 in the morning. Suddenly, there is a click, then another, and then darkness. The hospital is enveloped in an eerie silence. The lights flicker once or twice and then go out. Rosa calls out to Diego, looking up. "Rosa, I already saw the light," he replies, touching everything in the dark. Surely the whole system has crashed. The machines make agonizing noises. The cables vibrate until a short sound alerts VIP. Beep, beep, and then nothing. The monitor goes out. No, no, no. Diego runs to the outlet of power, squeezes the cables. Nothing works. The only sound now is the rain hitting the glass. And then he hears a different sound, a sound that cuts him inside. Isabella tries to breathe and can't. The air enters halfway. A high-pitched hoarse whistle fills the room. She is going into crisis. Rosa screams, trying to find something with her hands. The respirator has gone out. Diego runs to the closet, grabs the manual ambu, the same one from before. His hands tremble, but he forces himself to act quickly. He pulls the tube, connects it, and begins to pump. 1, 2, 3 movements. Isabella's chest rises a little, but the sound of air is weak. "Light," he asks. "I need light, Rosa." She grabs her cell phone and turns on the flashlight, but the light is small and shaky. Every time there is a flash of lightning, the room is illuminated for a second, and then returns to darkness. Isabella's face is very pale. Her lips are turning purple. Diego feels his heart racing. Her breathing is short and broken. Her chest sinks in despair. "Come on, Isabella, breathe," he murmurs, trying to keep up with each compression. Sweat runs down his face. The rain sounds louder. She fails to breathe again. Her chest barely moves. Diego says, "Rosa," his voice trembling. "Hurry up, please." He feels fear burning inside him. The image of the teenager he lost at boarding school comes to his mind, clear and painful. The sound of the monitor turning off again. His whole body wants to stop. His hands go stiff. Fear sets in, but he closes his eyes, takes a deep breath, and says to himself softly, "Not today." Lightning illuminates the room, and for a moment his face glistens with sweat and tears. He grabs the ambu bag tightly and begins to squeeze to the rhythm of his own breathing, and, without thinking, sings softly between compressions. "With you, I learned that there are new and better emotions." Her voice comes out low and trembling, but it is music, it is soul. Rosa watches him, and the sound of her crying mixes with the song. The flashlight moves in her hand, the light dancing on the walls. Each word Diego sings seems to push air into Isabella. He continues singing through his tears. "I learned that the week has more than 7 days." Isabella's chest begins to react. A small pink movement holds back the crying. Almost without breathing, Diego continues to murmur. She follows him. He squeezes the ambu bag again, synchronizing with the rhythm of the song. The sound of the storm outside becomes part of the music, a chorus of thunder and faith. But suddenly, the air fails. Isabella lets out a hoarse moan. Her body arches, and the tube comes out. Diego feels the panic returns. He tries to put it back in, but his hands are shaking. "No, no, no," he whispers, his eyes filled with tears. "Not now." The memory of the girl from the boarding school comes back clearly. The surgeon's voice shouting, the sound of the monitor turning off. His whole body freezes again for a second. Everything stops. Rosa realizes. They shout, "Diego, look at me. Don't stop now." He looks at her, takes a deep breath, and says softly, "Not today." and comes back with all his strength. He squeezes the ambu bag more firmly, synchronizes with her heart, and sings louder. With you, I learned to see the light on the other side of the moon. The air enters her chest, rises, falls, rises again, and then, in a moment that seems eternal, Isabella grabs the sleeve of his gown tightly. Diego stops. Her hand is warm. She grabs him as if he were returning from a faraway place. He breathes, murmurs with a broken voice. Breathe. The air finally enters completely. The soft sound of a real sigh fills the room. Her chest rises again firmly. Rosa lets out a loud sob. The flashlight falls to the floor but remains on, its light spinning across the ceiling. Diego grabs Isabella's hand, rests his forehead on hers, crying silently. Her breathing returns to normal. The sound of the storm outside begins to subside. Rosa approaches and wipes her face with the back of her hand and speaks in a trembling voice. Diego takes a deep breath with teary eyes and lets out a slight laugh mixed with crying. Today, he doesn't repeat with a sigh of relief. Today, the light doesn't go out. The power comes back on suddenly. The whole hospital lights up. The monitor flashes. The beeping sound returns, loud and steady. Diego looks at the screen, then at her, and feels his chest lighten. Outside, the rain begins to stop. Rosa kneels in a corner, exhausted, crying softly. Diego continues to hold Isabella's hand, feeling the warmth return to her skin. In the middle of that brightly lit room, the sound of the bolero can still be heard, soft and true, as if life itself had returned, singing. The early morning is quiet, the storm has passed, and the hospital seems like a different place, silent, almost at peace. The yellow light from the hallway enters through the half-open door and draws a rectangle of calm on the floor. The rain is now just a whisper outside. Diego is sitting next to the bed, his body tired, his hands folded in his lap. His shirt is wrinkled, his face has deep circles under his eyes, but his gaze is that of someone who saw something he will never forget. In front of him, Isabella sleeps, breathing deeply, calmly, her face at peace, as if the world outside had stopped. Rosa, who spent the night there, now sleeps leaning back in the armchair, covered with a coat. The soft sound of her breathing is the only movement besides the gentle beeping of the monitor. Diego gets up slowly, grabs a glass of water, returns, and sits down again. The sound of plastic against the metal of the table breaks the silence. He sighs. The weight of the night still lives in his body. His hands hurt, his throat is dry, his heart tired, but alive. A small movement catches his attention. Isabella slowly turns her face and opens her eyes. The first glance is confused and sleepy. The second is that of someone awakening from a very deep place. "Hello," says Diego with a slight smile, as if afraid of scaring her. "Everything is fine." She blinks, her gaze still lost. "Where am I?" Her voice is weak and hoarse, as if each word is an effort. "In the hospital," he replies calmly. "You're safe here. Are you sure?" She tries to move, but he gently holds her shoulder. "Don't strain yourself. You've been through a lot." Silence returns for a few seconds. Isabella looks around. Her gaze reaches his face. Her eyes shine, and there is something there, perhaps recognition or just gratitude that she does not yet understand. "You," she says softly. "You helped me, didn't you?" Diego gives a small, shy smile. "We did what we could." She takes a deep breath, and tears begin to fall. Why does she speak in pauses, her voice trembling? "Why didn't you let me go?" The question hangs heavy in the air. Diego remains silent. His eyes lower, then look back at her. He is in no hurry to answer. He takes a deep breath, runs his hand over his face, and finally speaks. His voice falters at first. He clears his throat and continues, "Because someone once slipped away in my hands." She looks at him intently, not fully understanding, but feeling the weight of his words. He tries to continue. "I stood still. I couldn't do anything. And she left. Since then, all I do is try to make sure no one leaves like that." He laughs a little without joy. "But when I saw you lying there cold, I felt that it wasn't just another body. I don't know how to explain it, Isabella. It was as if God had put me there to see you breathe, to see you come back. His voice trembles. He clenches his hands, trying to control herself. You saved me, she says in a whisper. It may sound crazy, but that's what happened. Isabella looks at him, and her eyes fill with tears. Her fragile hands reach for his. Diego hesitates a little, but lets her take him. The touch is warm, alive. I don't remember everything, she murmurs. But I remember a voice. Someone was singing a song. Diego smiles, his eyes filled with tears. So you heard it, she says with a slight tremor in her voice. I heard it, and I followed it. A tired smile. I thought it was my mom. No, but squeeze my hand. It was you. Diego's chest tightens. He doesn't answer, just looks down and lets the tears fall. He doesn't try to hide them. Isabella lifts her head a little, still weak. Thank you for bringing me back, she says softly. He doesn't answer, unable to hold back his tears. You brought me back to me. The silence that follows is the most beautiful of all. There is no rush. No, there is no fear. Only the sound of air going in and out, the constant beeping, and two hearts that recognize each other in pain and relief. Rosa wakes up, sees the scene, and remains silent, not wanting to interrupt. The room is bathed in a soft, almost golden light. Outside, the sky begins to brighten. Isabella dries her tears with her fingertips. I don't know what I'm going to do with my life now, she says sincerely. Diego shakes his head. Me neither. I know what I'm going to do with mine. They laugh together. A quiet, tired, but genuine laugh. The laugh of people who have survived. But today, he says, looking at her, today you are alive, and that is enough. The tears return, and they both let them flow without shame, without hiding. Outside, the first ray of sunlight crosses the window pane and illuminates them. That soft light touches Diego's face and is reflected in Isabella's eyes. Isabella's eyes. For a moment, neither of them says anything. They just breathe. They just feel. Because on that quiet morning, after so much darkness, there is no more death or guilt, only the silent miracle of two hearts that decided to stay. The day begins slowly. The sky over Los Angeles is painted pink and gold, a soft dawn after days of storm. The hospital terrace is small, with a few iron chairs and the smell of coffee rising from the cafeteria below. The air is still cold, but it no longer hurts. It is a cold that awakens, that cleanses. Isabella is standing leaning on the railing, wrapped in a light blanket that Rosa got for her. Her loose hair moves with the wind. Diego arrives slowly with 2 cups of coffee. He gives her one and smiles. It has no sugar, but it is warm, so it's fine, she replies with a small smile. For a moment, the two stare at the horizon. The city begins to wake up down below, among the cars and coffee stands. A soft melody rises through the air, a guitar, a hoarse voice, notes dancing with the wind. Diego recognizes it instantly. It's Don Tonio, he says with a smile. He plays here every day. Isabella closes her eyes, listening to the sound. It comes across clean, sincere. It's the same song as always, the same bolero she heard for the first time that night between life and death. She takes out her cell phone, the old headphones that were in the locker, carefully rolls up the cables, and puts one in her ear. She puts the other one in Diego's ear. The gesture is simple, intimate. There's something I want you to listen to with me, she says in a soft voice. Diego nods curiously. She presses the play button. The voice she hears is sweet, tired, full of love. If you find the doctor from the bolero, trust him. He will take care of you, and you will take care of him. Isabella cannot hold back her tears. They fall slowly, but do not hurt. Diego listens motionless, his eyes shining. Elena's voice fills the space between them, and it seems as if the whole world has stopped to listen. Love doesn't always come with flowers. Sometimes it comes with fear, with tremors, but it comes anyway. Trust. The audio ends. Only the sound of the wind and Don Tonio's distant guitar remain. Isabella takes a deep breath and wipes her face with the back of her hand. She knew everything, she says with a trembling laugh. She always knew. Diego looks at her, his eyes shining in the light of dawn. "Your mom was incredible." "She was," she replies softly, "but I think she's still here." They remain silent, listening to the guitar playing below. The sun rises slowly, painting their faces golden. Isabella rests her head on Diego's shoulder as if it were the most natural thing in the world. He hesitates for a second, then puts his arm around her. "I promised," he says, almost in a whisper. "I promised you'd be safe, and I promise I won't leave your side. Unless you want me to, of course." Isabella slowly turns her face and looks at him, her eyes shining as if they hold an old memory. "I want to," she says, pausing briefly, softly. "It's strange, but I feel like I've known you for a lifetime." Diego smiles a peaceful smile, the first real one in a long time. "Maybe we knew each other before," he says lightly. "Or maybe life just wanted to bring together two pieces that were loose." She laughs, resting her head on his shoulder again. His shoulder. The sound of the guitar down below where changes rhythm, entering into a slow bolero that the wind carries to them. Neither of them says anything else. It's not necessary. There is something greater there between the cold coffee, the rising sun, and the distant sound of the city. Diego takes her hand firmly, their fingers intertwining, and the silence that follows is beautiful, filled with a good kind of silence that needs no explanation. Don Tonio's guitar continues to play, and each note seems to say what they still don't know how to say. Isabella closes her eyes, takes a deep breath, and murmurs, "Thank you for not letting me go." Diego squeezes her hand. "Thank you for coming back." And there, between the sunrise and the memory of a mother who believed in the impossible, something new is born, soft, fragile, but real. Love that arrives slowly, without warning, without big promises. Love that is born of pain, but flourishes in faith. And as the sun rises, painting the sky pink and orange, they remain together in silence, feeling that somehow all that was pain now finally begins to make sense. The morning is clear and calm, and the air in the city of Los Angeles has that mixed smell of fresh bread and hot asphalt. The hospital is just beginning to wake up, but Diego and Isabella are already walking down the quiet hallway. He is wearing the same wrinkled robe he has worn for the last few days, but now he walks lightly, as if each step had a new meaning. Isabella, still a little pale, wears a simple blouse, her hair loose, and a quiet smile that, although small, fills the space with light. When they reach the exit, the doorman just nods his head. Diego holds the door open for her to pass, and the cold wind from the street greets them. "Watch out for the step," he says in a low, protective voice. "I know," she replies with a smile. "I'm not so fragile anymore." He smiles too, but with her eyes still teary, she feels the light weight of key 13 tied to the blue ribbon in her pocket. For a moment she pauses, holds the object between her fingers, and looks at it. The ribbon moves in the wind, reflecting the sunlight. Isabella realizes, "That key is for the locker, right?" "My mom's." Diego nods. "Yes." He takes a deep breath, his voice trembling. "And now it must stay with you." He extends his hand. Isabella looks at her for a few seconds, without taking it. "Are you sure?" "Yes," he says slowly, looking her in the eyes. "Because that key already did what it had to do. It opened what was closed. Here." He touches his chest softly. "Now it's your turn to keep it." Isabella takes the key carefully, as if it were something alive. She holds it between her fingers, looks at the blue ribbon, and smiles. "My mom would have liked you, you know." Diego looks down and swallows the lump in his throat. I think she already liked him. They walk slowly through the streets until they reach the square where Elena used to sing, the same place Don Tonio had shown her, the same ground where Isabella fainted. Now the sun gently illuminates everything. There are children playing, a man selling flowers, and on the corner, an old guitar leaning against a bench. Don Tonio is there, as always, playing a bolero. When he sees them, he just nods respectfully without saying anything. He knows that this moment needs no words. Diego and Isabella sit on the wooden bench and remain silent for a while. The sound of the guitar and the soft singing fill the air. Isabella takes the extra blue ribbon out of her pocket, the same one that was tied to the key when they found it. "I want to leave it here. she says, looking at the bench. This was her favorite place to be. Diego helps her tie the ribbon to the arm of the bench with a firm and beautiful. The wind blows and makes the ribbon move lightly, freely. Isabella watches the movement for a while. You know, it's strange, she says without taking her eyes off the ribbon. I should be sad, but I'm not. I feel like she's okay. Diego smiles slightly with a look full of tenderness. I think she is. He pauses. And you're going to be okay too. She turns to look at him. And you? He sighs. I'm staying silent for a moment. I think I'm starting to be okay too. They look at each other. There is something deep in that gaze. A silent recognition, a peace that comes after much pain. The sound of the guitar continues, and Diego speaks almost in a whisper. You know, Isabella, we spend our lives opening bodies, trying to understand what happened to others. But sometimes what we discover is that we were the ones who were dead inside. Isabella feels the tears fall, but they are soft and beautiful. She rests her head on his shoulder without fear. Then she says in a light voice, It's good that we found each other in time. No, Diego smiles, closes his eyes for a moment, and takes her hand. How wonderful that the sun is now stronger, and the blue ribbon dances in the wind. Don Tonio plays the last chord of the bolero, and, without looking at them, begins to put away his guitar. Diego and Isabella remain there in silence, with their eyes closed, feeling the warmth of the morning. There is no need to say anything. Their silence is full of love and farewell, gratitude. If this story touched your heart, write, who would you like to bring back to life today? In the comments and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next video, which will feature things you've never heard before. Thank you for watching this far.